So, what if you could give your own mind a massive upgrade? I'm not talking about replacing it, I'm talking about supercharging it. Well, that's the promise behind this pretty radical new idea called neurophotonic agency. And honestly, it could completely flip the script on how we think about brain computer interfaces.
Yeah, this quote, it really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The whole idea we're digging into today isn't about our brains being obsolete. Not at all. It's actually the opposite. It sees our minds as the only place where real, original thought, what the source material calls agency, actually comes from. So what's the problem? Well, our brains are kind of stuck in biological first gear. This whole concept is about strapping a photonic, a light speed engine right onto them.
And that, right there, brings us to the central challenge. I mean, this is a huge engineering problem for sure, but it's also a really deep philosophical one, right? How in the world do you merge with a machine to get faster, to get smarter, without, accidentally wiping out your own consciousness along the way? That's the big question. Okay, so to really get the solution here, we first have to talk about the problem. And that problem, it's what's known as the human bottleneck. All right, so this distinction is absolutely crucial. You and I, we have something called intrinsic agency, where, well, we're non-deterministic. That means we can come up with a totally new idea or make a choice that isn't just some predictable echo of everything we've ever experienced. But current AI, no matter how smart it seems, it's deterministic. The source material calls it a philosophical zombie, which is a great term for it. It's a perfect mimic, right? It can simulate creativity, but it's just remixing its programming. It doesn't have that spark of real, genuine intent. So when we try to connect our brains to a regular old computer, we hit this analog to digital bottleneck. Think about it like this. Your thoughts are like a rich, super high definition movie full of color and nuance. What current interfaces do is try to capture that movie by chopping it up into a stream of ones and zeros. And you can imagine what happens, right? All that richness, all that subtlety, it just gets lost in translation. It's like a bad pixelated copy. And that leads to this point. Existing interfaces, they don't really make us think better or faster. They just let us get our thoughts out quicker. It's exactly like the quote says, they give us a faster typewriter, but they don't help us write the masterpiece. And that's where this new architecture wants to be a complete game changer. Okay, so how does it do that? Well, it starts with the first of three huge breakthroughs. And this one is all about solving the noise problem. I mean, how does a system tell the difference between a real intentional thought and just, the random chatter in your brain? The answer is pretty cool. It uses a biological lock and key. So here it is, the chemical gate. Now, I know this looks complex, but don't worry about the nitty-gritty details right now. Here's the key idea. This whole mechanism is designed to just sit there, completely switched off. It ignores all the background noise in your brain until it detects the very specific chemical signature of a real, intentional thought. You can literally think of it like a password, but one that's made out of your own brain chemistry. So let's just walk through how this works, step by step. First, when you form a deliberate thought, a real intention, your neurons release a flood of this neurotransmitter called glutamate. Then there's an enzyme that's layered right onto the device, and it immediately converts that glutamate into something else. And that something else? It's hydrogen peroxide, and that becomes the chemical key that unlocks the whole system. And this is it. This simple little chemical reaction is the whole secret. The entire system is built so that only hydrogen peroxide, which is a direct byproduct of you thinking an intense, intentional thought, can flip that switch from off to on. It's genius, really. It's how it guarantees it's only listening when you really mean it. No intent means no key. And that gate stays shut. All right, so once that chemical gate swings open, everything changes. We leave the world of biology behind and we step into the world of physics. This, my friends, is where the light speed upgrade really kicks in. So take a look at this. This is the optical accelerator. And the first thing you should notice is what's not there. See any wires? Any transistors? A CPU? Nope. This is not a computer like we're used to. It's basically a solid block of crystal that does its computing just by having light pass through it. The whole calculation happens through the pure physics of light diffracting and interfering with itself. It's wild. The source calls it a crystalline library of weights. And just think about that for a second. The logic, the knowledge, the entire neural network, it's all physically baked into the 3D structure of this special material. We're not talking about software here. We're talking about static, solid geometry.
The thinking just happens as light bends and focuses its way through this pre-programmed structure. It's hardware in the most literal sense of the word.
And the speed? It is just staggering. A computation takes about 10 femtoseconds. Okay, what does that even mean? That's 10 quadrillionth of a second. Let me try to put that into perspective for you. In the time it takes this little crystal to compute an answer, a top-of-the-line GPU hasn't even started its first clock cycle. It's still on the starting block.
And if the speed didn't blow your mind, the efficiency will. The computation itself, it consumes zero energy. Nothing. All the energy was used upfront when the crystal was made. So the calculation is just a passive physical event, kind of like light passing through a lens. And because of that, it generates no heat, which, as you can imagine, is absolutely critical if you're going to put this thing in a human brain. Okay, so let's recap. We have a thought, filtered by that chemical gate. We get an answer, computed at the speed of light. So now for the last and maybe most important piece of the puzzle, how do you get that answer back into the brain so it can actually understand it?
Well, this is how it works. That focused beam of light that comes out of the crystal, that's the answer. It hits a detector. That detector instantly turns the light back into a tiny electrical current. And that current is then used to safely stimulate a neuron right next to it.
And the key word there, believe me, is safely. See, older interfaces, they use direct electrical contact, which can actually damage brain tissue over time. But this system, it uses something called a phaptic coupling. The best way to think about it is like wireless charging, but for your neurons. It uses an electrical field to gently nudge the neuron into firing without any damaging current ever actually touching the cell. It's a huge deal for long-term safety.
And this is maybe the most profound part of the whole thing, because that signal is delivered so directly and so safely right into your cortex. It doesn't come through your eyes or ears. It doesn't feel like you're being told something. Your brain just accepts it as an endogenous insight. Like a sudden aha moment or an intuition that feels completely 100% your own. The line between your thought and the machine's output, it just vanishes.
So, let's pull all this together. Let's do a quick summary of the 3 big breakthroughs that make this whole architecture for an augmented human even possible.
So, number 1, you've got the chemical gate, which uses your own brain chemistry to make sure it's only listening to a genuine, intentional thought. Number 2 is the optical accelerator, that amazing passive crystal that performs huge calculations with zero energy and at the speed of light. And finally, number 3, you have the safe feedback loop, which gets that answer back into your cortex so it feels like a completely natural, internal insight.
And all of this brings us to one last really provocative thought. We spend so much time worrying about what artificial intelligence is going to do to us. But this technology, it just flips that whole script. This isn't about artificial agency, it's about agency augmentation. It's about upgrading us. So the real question becomes, if you remove the barrier between human thought and basically infinite computation, what kinds of new realities will this expanded human agent choose to create? What currently unthinkable futures will they decide to build? Now that's something to really think about.